Alright guys, if y'all are new to the channel, real quick, let me tell y'all what we do. Let me tell y'all what we talk about, and that is Dynasty Fantasy Football. This is strictly a Dynasty Fantasy Football channel. Obviously, the player you clicked on, whatever team he went to, is definitely going to be discussed and how it affects that NFL team and the supporting cast around it. But our main focus is on Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you don't know what that is, just fantasy football year round. You draft one team, you always have that team throughout the entire offseason. You're making trades, you're going through, you're actually drafting rookies like your real NFL team, and it's a lot of fun. If you have never played in a Dynasty League before and are interested in joining one, we have new leagues starting every single week. Go down the description of the video, join the Discord, and that's where you're going to get all the info for that. And if you are already playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, you are at the perfect place. Make sure you go down there and subscribe. This is going to be the channel for you, but let's get into the video.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, and y'all know if y'all been watching for the channel, I've been pushing this very hard lately just because I get y'all 2 videos a day, but it's more important now than ever. I need y'all to make sure you go down and like this video. I'm going to be putting out 4 to 5 videos a day, so I promise you, I sent that screenshot earlier with what happens in the YouTube algorithm. If I upload more than 1 video a day and y'all don't leave a like, pretty much it just kills the channel. So it's now more important than ever. Make sure you go down right now and leave a like on this video. All right, the 49ers go out and take probably the most on-brand pick ever. I think pretty much a lot of people thought they were going to go with Brandon AIYUK once they traded back, and I know they were mocked to go Ruggs quite often at 13 overall, which made the most sense for them because we already know that they have a ton of guys on that team that can command targets and can be efficient with the targets that they get. They have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and a sneaky guy that I'll get on talk about later on in the video. One of my favorite candidates to be a breakout player in 2020. Looks like it may not happen now. Pour one out. We'll pour one out for him at the end. But let's jump into Brandon AIYUK. Brandon AIYUK was drafted at the end of the first round, and this surprised some people. But if you looked at expert mock drafts like an Evan Silva, Brandon AIYUK was consistently being mocked to go here in this range, not necessarily to the 49ers because we didn't know that they would have a pick in this range. But Brandon AIYUK was a guy on a lot of people's draft boards just because of what he can do and what he can provide for an NFL team. Now, Brandon AIYUK is 6 foot, 205 pounds, and what's weird about him is going into the combine. I know there was that one report that came out that pretty much, I think they surveyed 31 scouts for every NFL team but one, something like that. And every single one of them had a higher grade on it, Brandon AIYUK, in 2020 than they did with N'Keal Harry, his former teammate, in 2019. So this got a lot of Brandon AIYUK hype going, and a lot of people looked into him and said, hey, watch out for this guy at the combine. He is going to be blazing. He's going to be up there with the Jalen Reagor, and he is going to really impress. Yet, he goes into the combine and kind of lets down expectations. I know he runs fast, but at the same time, we didn't see the explosion and we did not see the speed that so many people promised that we would see. But at the same time, if you look at these film scouts, they are consistent with saying, hey, Brandon AIYUK, he's not fast in underwear at the NFL Combine, but he has high film speed. I'm not one to look at a recording and be able to say, yeah, that guy is really fast. I think it's hard for me to say that, oh, maybe he's just a lot faster than the defenders that Arizona State is playing. Maybe they play subpar competition with poor athletes. But that's not where I am, but I'm going to listen to the experts, and mainly I'm going to listen to Kyle Shanahan. And I think one of the reasons that Brandon AIYUK fits the Kyle Shanahan molds so well is because Kyle Shanahan's actually on record saying, I don't care if my wide receivers can run great routes. What I want them to be able to do is I want them to be able to get to the spot I tell them to be at, and we're going to scheme them the ball, and I want them to be able to be playmakers. Once they have the ball, they need to be able to make defenders miss and be a threat to take it to the house. This is exactly what Deebo Samuel is. Deebo Samuel, if you remember just in the Super Bowl with everyone I know watched that game, and if you think back at the beginning of that game, Kyle Shanahan loves drawing up plays, creative ways to get the ball into his wide receivers' hands. He's not just going to be one of these old-fashioned style coaches saying, hey, you got to go and you got to beat the corner on this route, then maybe you'll get the target. No, Kyle Shanahan is going to work hard. He's going to draw up plays to make sure his wide receivers, his playmakers, get the ball in their hands, and that is what makes the 49ers a successful football franchise. So Brandon Ayuk fits in this offense perfectly because I don't really hear anybody talk about him being, oh, he's an elite route runner. He's a Jerry Jeudy light when it comes to route running. But at the same time, he's a fantastic playmaker when he has the ball. I mean, we see this with his just dynamic ability in the return game. He was a great returner at Arizona State. And really, he was just an all-around athlete, an all-around superstar when he played in junior college before transferring to Arizona State. Now, I know a lot of people we see come in after this JUCO route. They are older prospects. Brandon Ayuk isn't the youngest. He's not 21 years old like pretty much every single wide receiver in this draft, but he is only 22. And if we look at his new teammate, Deebo Samuel, this is actually a year younger than Deebo Samuel was when he came into the draft last offseason. So I think Brandon Ayuk's age is not too big of a concern like it was with a Deebo Samuel or a Terry McLaurin, where even though they broke out, their dynasty values didn't really skyrocket just because a lot of people saw that age and said, hey, maybe they're already near their ceiling. Maybe how much more can they develop? How much more can they improve? But Brandon Ayuk still has that room. In 2018, we see him his first year at Arizona State have 33 receptions, 474 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, this is pretty much being the third weapon in the offense behind N'Keal Harry and Benjamin. So he does have that competition for touches in this Arizona State offense. But as soon as N'Keal Harry's out of the picture, he rises to the occasion. And in 2019, he has 65 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, and 8 total touchdowns. And this is all while being a special player in the return game, and this is what brings him that NFL value. This is why he was drafted at the end of the first round. It's because of his playmaking ability and because what he's going to be able to do in the San Francisco 49ers offense. Now, let's talk about not only his dynasty value, but let's talk about what this does for the other players in the 49ers offense. Obviously, Jimmy G is going to get a boost here. I mean, if you add a dynamic weapon to any offense, that quarterback is going to get a small upgrade in dynasty value. I think we should be improving Jimmy G's fantasy projections, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, it doesn't help anybody else in the offense. It hurts every other weapon. Deebo Samuel, I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, Deebo's going to eat no matter what. Deebo proved to be a great player his rookie season. Yeah, I agree. This is the same conversation I have with Courtland Sutton. I mean, I completely agree that Deebo Samuel is a fantastic football player, and he's probably a better wide receiver than Brandon Ayuk is. But that does not mean that Brandon Ayuk does not hurt Deebo Samuel's fantasy value, not only in 2020, but in beyond that. Just because Brandon Ayuk is going to be getting targets. It doesn't matter if Deebo Samuel slightly increases his efficiency. It doesn't matter if his yards per target go up by 0.4 if he's getting 20 targets less than he would have if Brandon Ayuk was not in this offense. It's going to outweigh whatever small efficiency bump he gets. So Deebo Samuel, the ceiling on him has to be lowered. I still believe that he is one of these wide receivers that has an extremely high floor just because what we saw him do his rookie season. But he was already a player that I've kind of been avoiding this offseason, and I've been telling you all the same thing just because he was a super old prospect, and I'm kind of concerned what his ultimate ceiling ever was, and now that there's an additional weapon in this passing game, I am lowering him down my board. Same thing with George Kittle. Yes, George Kittle, obviously the most talented tight end in the NFL right now. I truly believe that he is a more talented tight end than Travis Kelce. If you look at PFF grades, which aren't everything, I mean, they're not black and white, but they are a good gauge of, at least I use them for blocking, because I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I can scout tight end blocking. But George Kittle actually received a higher PFF grade at the tight end position than any player at that position in, I believe, like the past 10 years. Something just absolutely absurd. George Kittle is at the top of the league in talent at the tight end position, an uber athlete, and really knows how to block and knows how to win with his yards after the catch ability. But hate to say it, I have George Kittle in a couple spots. This hurts his dynasty value. Another wide receiver coming in here, another wide receiver taking targets away from George Kittle. Yes, he's still going to be the number one option in this offense, but there are more options, so that number one piece of the pie is going to get a little smaller. George Kittle, I think, in 2020, just for redraft leagues, I'm actually going to lower him under Zach Ertz. I know a lot of high tier, like Evan Silva, fantasy analyst, had Zach Ertz already ahead of George Kittle, kind of a little ahead of the curve here, but George Kittle does have a ton of competition for targets in an offense that doesn't necessarily want to air it out every single game. Now, can we just pour one out for my man, Jalen Hurd? I was so excited for him. I told y'all to go out and buy him earlier this offseason, and I still believe that he has a career in the NFL. I still believe that down the road, he's going to get his opportunity, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And I thought with the departure of Emmanuel Sanders, he had his shot in 2020, but it looks like he's going to be riding it out on our taxi squads for another year, and hopefully we see something improve in his situation. But thanks so much, guys. Really hope you all enjoyed. Actually, let me talk about where I'm drafting Brandon AIYUK. I keep on forgetting to do this in these videos. Brandon AIYUK. So I think he's outside of the tier 1. Obviously, he's not in the J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Joe Burrow range. Outside of tier 2. And I think he's sliding into tier 3. I think he's with the T. Higgins. He's with the Michael Pittman. I think he's with those guys just because his ceiling is not that high in this 49ers offense. He will never be the number 1 option ahead of George Kittle. Probably will never be the number 2 option ahead of Deebo Samuel. So he's a number 3 option in an offense that does not like to air it out. So I question what his ceiling is. I do believe that he has a good weekly ceiling in leagues like that are best ball, like our flock leagues. Brandon AIYUK would be a good player to go out there and target. But in a regular league where you have to go out there and start 3 wide receivers week to week and pick which ones you believe are going to produce, I think Brandon AIYUK is not going to add that much value to your fantasy season. So I'm most likely going to be trying to avoid him in those formats. But that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video. Really hope y'all got something from it. If y'all did, make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the little bell next to it. But thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.